Titanic and the Lost Key. The sinking of the Titanic is undoubtedly one of the largest disasters in history, but it could have been prevented if not for one little thing. The fact is that the management company decided to replace one of the officers on the ship. It would have been alright, but he still had the key in his pocket, which he forgot to give to his successor. It was the key to the storage room where the binoculars were kept. Without a key, Fred Fleet, who was responsible for paving the way, did not have access to binoculars and could not see the iceberg in time. And if he had seen it, there would have been no tragedy. The driver who got lost. In 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand's driver became entangled in Sarajevo. He was on his way to the hospital, took a wrong turn and tried to turn back. The car stalled right in front of a small cafe. There was a young murderer named Gavrilo Princip in this cafe. He went out and shot the Archduke. This is considered to be the spark that started the First World War, and that war triggered the chain of events of World War II, the Cold War, and the very organization of the modern world. A merciful soldier. During the First World War, a British soldier took aim at a wounded German. He didn't fire. This German was a young Adolf Hitler. One moment of mercy, a moment of humanity in the war, and the greatest criminal in history remained alive. And with this life, he will later drag the world into an even darker, more destructive war. Translation error and Hiroshima. Let us recall one of the most terrible events in the history of mankind, the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima. Imagine, this tragedy could have been avoided if the Allies had been more lucky with the translator. So, in the Potsdam Declaration, the Allies demanded Japan's unconditional surrender. In response, the then Prime Minister of Japan, Kantaro Suzuki, wrote a letter in which he used the word mokusatsu, which allows for different interpretations. Suzuki wanted to say that he would think about the Allies' demand, but the translator translated it as if the Japanese Prime Minister rejected their demands. Everyone knows the result. 10 days later, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. A moldy cup. In 1928, Alexander Fleming left the laboratory in disarray before his vacation and forgot to wash the petri dish on the table. When he returned from vacation, a blue-green mold grew in it. He noticed a strange thing. The bacteria around the mold had died. This mold turned out to be penicillin, the first antibiotic. He saved hundreds of millions of lives. Without him, modern medicine in its form would not exist. Melted chocolate. In 1945, engineer Percy Spencer was working on radar technology. Standing next to a device called a magnetron, he felt something strange. The chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Instead of ignoring it, he became interested. He tried a magnetron on corn kernels and saw them explode. This is how the microwave device appeared. He has changed the way we cook, eat, and even design kitchens. Chemical weapons that heal. In World War II, a clandestine cargo of mustard gas was bombed in an Italian port. The gas spread, killing hundreds of people. The doctors, examining the victims, noticed a strange thing. The gas destroyed white blood cells the fastest. This fact led to the idea of using such substances in small doses to fight cancer. That's how chemotherapy was born. The weapon of war has become a means of saving lives, accidentally. The fall of the Lydian Kingdom. Around 546 BC, the legendarily wealthy king Croesus ruled Lydia and conceived a war against the rising power of Persia. Despite his confidence in his armies, the superstitious Croesus decided to turn to the famous oracle for advice. In response, he heard, "If you go to war against the Persians, you will destroy a great kingdom." Inspired by such words, Croesus interpreted them as a guarantee of victory. Without delay, he marched troops against King Cyrus. The prediction literally came true, but it was about the Lydian Kingdom itself. Croesus lost the war, the Persians defeated his army, captured the capital Sardis, and captured the king himself. Lydia ceased to exist as an independent state, becoming part of the Persian Empire. The king was mistaken not in the tactics of the battle, but in the interpretation of the prophecy. With his blunder, he cleared the way for the rise of the Persian Empire, the United States, and the metric system. It's hard to imagine, but the formation of the American system of measures was influenced by sea robbers. At the end of the 18th century, shortly after the Revolutionary War, the United States was seriously discussing the abandonment of British inches and pounds in favor of a new metric system. Thomas Jefferson even asked for help from France. Paris sent a scientist overseas with exemplary standards and materials, but history ordered otherwise. On the way, the ship got into a storm, went off course, and fell right into the clutches of British privateers. He was captured and thrown into prison on the island of Montserrat, where he died shortly after, never reaching America. In the end, the United States stayed true to inches, miles, and gallons largely because of that fateful accident at sea, a cow and a lantern. In 1871, it is said, Mrs. O'Leary's cow in Chicago knocked over a lantern in a barn. The barn caught fire. This awkward moment marked the beginning of one of the most devastating fires in U.S. history. The fire destroyed a significant part of the city. The Great Chicago Fire led to new building codes and fire safety standards. This is how the modern line of Chicago's skyscrapers appeared. A clumsy cow helped transform an entire city. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you liked this video.